Duwamish Valley from I-5 all the way over to West Seattle was filled with seawater as an arm of Puget Sound, and that stayed that way until only about 1,000 years ago. And the reason that we have dry land there is because of eruptions from Mount Rainier. And so these eruptions were happening between 5,000 years ago and about 1,000 years ago. So you can imagine 4,000 years of Mount Rainier erupting, the landscape changing 20 feet a year, moving the place where the delta is located for 4,000 years. This is a period of really dramatic change, and it filled in the entire valley, and that's why we have a nice flat bottom of the valley today. So about 1,000 years ago, there was a very large earthquake on the Seattle Fault, which runs right through the Duwamish Valley, right through where Harbor Island is now and the West Seattle Bridge, and it runs east-west. And so about 1,000 years ago, there was uplift during an earthquake there, and the uplift raised the delta about 2 stories, so something like 20 feet. This earthquake also produced really intense shaking. So the shaking was so strong that entire hillsides with trees standing on them slid into Lake Washington. It also produced a tsunami in Puget Sound, and this tsunami rolled over where the wastewater treatment plant is at West Point, and probably all the way up to the Snohomish Delta and maybe further. And so this would have been a really catastrophic event. It would be completely catastrophic if it were to occur today. The people who were here at the time of the earthquake, because we know that there were people here, were well poised to take advantage of this land as soon as it became available. And this site is now the site where the Duwamish Longhouse is on the west side of the Duwamish Valley. I've also been working in the marsh in the former estuary of the Duwamish waterway. And there are liquefaction features. So liquefaction is something that can happen during earthquakes when the ground shakes. If you have a big pile of wet sand, that sand can act very liquid, and it moves around and creates all these funny shapes. For example, if we were to have another earthquake, we know that the lower Duwamish waterway and the Harbor Island area are Superfund sites, and the level of contamination that are in those sites would present an additional hazard, in addition to the landslides and the tsunami and all of the other things that would naturally occur. The ground beneath our feet is not as solid as we sometimes would like it to believe that it is. Humans and the landscape are inextricably intertwined, and you can see that in lots of ways. You can see that in the earthquake that raised the land, that produced a dry site for a village to be built on. And then you can see that in the ways that people have now dredged and filled the Duwamish Delta and presented additional hazards to ourselves. Just because we live in an urban environment doesn't mean that the natural world isn't always there with us. It's always there beneath our feet, and it's always changing.